All those opposed, the rules have been adopted. Once again, if you need a copy, we can have Ryan send you the copy if you need the updated version. With that, we'll go in order.
Suspend the necessary rules, take up items 1, 2, and 3 as a package. They're all
Public
reappointments.
comment
Well,
first?
hold on, we'll go to public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Normally, there is something tabled, so that's kind of why we're thrown off. Public comment, there is one that is signed up. It's a James Fitzgerald of 439 Northampton Street. Welcome.
Could you turn the mic on? I don't think it's on. I don't think so.
No, underneath,
There should be a switch on the bottom of that.
Okay. Is that on?
there you
There we
go.
go.
Okay. Yeah, James Fitzgerald, as Councilor McGee said, and I have submitted a citizen's petition for a zone change on parcels next to my home on Northampton Street. And I think much has changed since this was changed. It was changed in 2007, I believe, and I'm just asking you all to take a fresh look at it. I think with where Holyoke's at now, that it might be worth looking at changing it back. That's it. Thank you.
And as we said, this will go to committee.
Yeah.
And then when the committee takes it up, you'll get notice to come on down.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Mr. President,
Yep.
motion to suspend the rules and take 8 and 9 as a package.
Second,
So what was that? I missed that, Councilor.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
8 and 9.
8 and 9? Okay.
Yeah, those are the petitions which Mr. Fitzgerald just referred.
Under discussion?
So first is to
Suspend the rules.
suspend the rules, go out of order and take up 8 and 9 as a package. All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The petition is a petition to amend the Smiths Ferry neighborhood zoning from BH to R2. And 9 is that there is a petition from James Fitzgerald for 439 Northampton Street for the zone change on the parcel, and it gives a list of the parcels from BH to R2. This is to go to committee. It would be ordinance. Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. Just curious if there's 2 separate petitions, both for BH to R2, or if one is the, is it a duplicate, or is there something different about the 2?
There's a zone change application, and then there's the petition for amendment,
Okay.
citizens petition.
Want to turn your mic on? Say what you said?
No, I was just going to say, the first one is the actual application that the petitioner submitted to the office, and then they also submitted a citizen's petition signed by the neighborhood, and we did certify, I think it was 37 signatures out of like 38, so it should say citizen's petition on there, it just was missing that language.
Thank you.
So motion refer to ordinance.
Motion is to send to ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Back up to, I do believe there is 1, 2, and 3. You wanted to take as a
Second.
package?
Yeah,
All
let's
those-
make a motion, and since they're reappointments, right? Serve to,
So motion is to take up 1, 2, and 3 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 1 is from the mayor reappointing Michael Dodge to the Conservation Commission with the term expiring February 1st, 2023. 2 is another reappointment for the Library Board of Directors, and that's for George Meddy, I guess if you say that correctly, expires February 2022. And then the reappointment of Bellamy Schmidt to the Library Board of Directors, which would expire February 2023.
Motion to approve the reappointments.
second.
Granted all.
Oh, hold on. Motion is to approve. Under discussion, Counselor Sullivan.
I'd kind of like us to not take one in the package. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what's gone on recently with the planning board and some of the reappointments that we've been doing just automatically. Planning board and Conservation Commission are very, very key boards to development in the city. And we ought to take a chance to review what's gone on during the tenure of these people's terms. And I'd like to at least see the conservation one go to public service so we can have a chance to talk to these people before the reappointment.
So motion is to take up 1 and 3 as a package, but refer 2 back to.
No,
public
it's,
service.
1 is taken out of the package. And
Oh,
2
1, sorry, 1. 1 out of the package, 2 and 3 to reappoint. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So 1 is goes to public service.
I'll second that.
And 2 and 3 are now up for reappointment.
Second that.
And that is, so we're all on the same page, the Library Board of Directors and Library Board of Directors. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Four is the contract for the chief, the fire chief, finance.
Yeah, Finance Committee.
To finance, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5 is from the city clerk and Ryan Allen with regards to the December 17th and January 7th minutes of the meeting.
That we accept and approve?
Second.
Everyone had a chance to review? Any corrections? Counselor
I
McGivern?
think the 17th is missing a narrative.
Yep. So
Table the 17th.
table the 17th. Approve the 7th. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Number 6 is from former city councilor Jason Ferreira, which is the interest for the CPA.
Make a
or
motion to
CPC.
receive and send to the committee for the Community Preservation Committee.
So,
Second.
public service.
That's our appointment, though,
Yeah,
right?
go to public service.
Yeah.
So receive and refer to public service.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seven is the health board minutes for October 3rd.
Be received?
Motion is to receive. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
It says 3019. I know it's 2019.
Good
I
pickup
was like,
there.
wow, can you imagine what the city of Holyoke will look like then?
How time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on here, on the agenda, it says 3019, it's really 2019, but on the minutes of the meeting is correct.
President?
Yeah, Counselor Bartley.
I left my computer in my office, but just under discussion, I'd like to just table these for, till the next meeting, only because there's a point in those meeting minutes that, I'm sorry, I blanked it, but it was to the effect that the city council is going to approve the minutes and we can move X forward. And I just have to refresh my memory. Unfortunately, I just don't have the minutes, and I can't remember what it was exactly that was in those minutes. So if we could just table these to the next meeting, I'll be more prepared at that point.
I'll second that.
All right, so motion is to table item 7. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We did 8 and 9. President's report. You requested it, and the chief heard you. For your badges, he did go out and get you your carry cases. So I'll pass those out later. For Counselor Hernandez and Counselor Graney, your badges will be coming shortly, so they'll be here soon. Also, I gave it to Counselor McGivern, who heads up our flower fund. We were requested by the St. Patrick's Day Committee to, once again, give money towards the program book. He has that. We give that every year as a contribution to them, as well as the Hibernians. They are also requesting, but I always tell you guys when people are asking for funds from the Flower Fund. Other than that, I'll turn it over to anyone who has anything for missing. Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, of course, I have something to say. And if you could just have, Ryan, anytime we do any of those sponsorships or whatnot, if you could just make a photocopy, and just give one to me at least. I don't know if anybody else wants one, just so I know what we're sponsoring. And I also wanted, in regards to the parade committee as well, for the new counselors, the parade committee does provide sashes. If you would like to purchase a sash, I can get you guys into contact with the right person. And the second thing is there's a retro game supporting Providence Hospital this Friday night, January 24th, 6:30 at the Log Cabin. It's a bunch of local celebrities playing games from back in the old days. And that should be a lot of fun. And the last thing, most importantly, is, as Abraham Lincoln once said, everything that a boy, I forget exactly how he said it, but he said, everything that I have learned or become is because of my angel mother. And I have an angel mother, and she is celebrating a birthday today. They're having a birthday party for her right now, so I just wish my mother a happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, I just want to announce, we're having a meeting down at Morgan School Friday from 5 to about 6:30. Eddie Case from Safe Neighborhood Initiative, Officer Cologne, and Betty Medina Lichtenstein, and myself, and a few others have gotten together. And I just want to invite the community. Our goal is to try to work, that the community working as one, to work with police, to work with the community, just to try to make the neighborhood, all of our neighborhoods safer. So while it's at Morgan School, I would like to invite anyone in the community, because we need to become a full community to make it safe. We did have a pretty successful meeting at Lawrence School last Thursday, and we had some good discussion, and I think the same kind of thing will be taking place this Friday. So I want to invite any of you that can make it, and anyone from the community to come, and let's work together to make each of our neighborhoods safer. I know some of the concerns were specifically around Lawrence School, Morgan School, but it's for all schools and in all neighborhoods. So hopefully some of you can make it and offer your support. Thanks.
Anyone further? Counselor McGivern.
Just a little addition to Councilor Leahy. It's, the retro game night is Providence Ministries, which is Kate's Kitchen, Margaret's Pantry, Loretta House, McCleary House, and a couple of others, wonderful things that they do. Last year, there was over 300 people that attended this event, mostly from the city of Holyoke, and it really is a big help to the efforts that they do. If anyone needs tickets, I can get them for them. A lot of our teachers have got teams in this year, so it's going to be very competitive. The games they played last year was The Price is Right, Family Feud, and so on. And it was not only entertaining, but it was fun to watch and for a good cause.
And if you want to see me answer every answer incorrectly, it'd be fun to watch Friday night as well, because this is not going to be pretty.
All right, with that, we'll move on to reports of committee. Ordinances first. 10A. Committee on Ordinances referred a special permit application for 4 Trees Holyoke LLC to be operated at 1 Cabot Street with the following conditions: that the owner of the building always pay commercial property tax rates to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws during the duration of the special permit, that the business retain a minimum of 30% of Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. 3, that hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police officers or are members of the police department now live in the city of Holyoke. That there's no consumption allowed on site, that there be no deliveries, that the hours be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Applicant must comply with the recommendations listed in the 2020-19 letter from the city engineer.
Motion to pass the first reading.
Motion is to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Counselor Lisi.
Thank you. So we had 4 Trees LLC in front of the Ordinance Committee last week. They were really prepared. They had really streamlined presentation for us, and they identify themselves as a blue-collar startup because they're folks that started within the industry and now are starting to create their own manufacturing establishment as well as a retail establishment in 1 Cabot Street, which was a parcel that the city council actually put out to bid a number of years ago, 3 years ago, I think. So it was nice to see, the productivity of that parcel going out to bid come full circle, and the tenants are now occupying I think they're at 80% or so filled with tenants. They came really prepared. They are making a couple of site improvements, including ADA ramp. They're going to have a chain link enclosure around the dumpster for the delivery area, and then they're also going to be repairing a platform in the rear of the building and some pavement markings. They're anticipating about 200 customers a day, and they'll be creating 10 to 12 full-time positions for the retail end, and another 9 to 12 full-time positions on the cultivation end. And they are looking to recruit from within Holyoke. They want to make sure that, especially on the retail end, that most of their staff has a bilingual ability. And they do a number of trainings within the state social equity program that can be accessed through the CCC. So we were happy with their application. We put the normal 6 conditions that we've been putting on that have become very standard. And then there was one final condition that we put on regarding the letter that the engineer wrote listed, let's see, so the city engineer sent a letter dated 12/20/19 that talked about, the need to look for additional, so that they currently meet the parking requirements that are required by ordinance, but as the site grows, they may need to look for additional parking spots. But that's really an issue for one Cabot as opposed to the special permit applicant for trees at this point in time. The one thing that I do want to amend, however, is condition 6. It's absolutely correct in what it says, but I think that the language that we would prefer is that the hours of operation comply with city ordinances, because if they change over time, then their permit will always be conforming to the ordinance, whatever the ordinance says at whatever point in time. So while this is correct today, if ordinance actually changes, we'd like that condition 6 to reflect the ordinance itself.
I'll second that amendment.
So the motion is to amend item 6. It currently reads that hours of operation, and that's the typo, hours of operation be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Shall now read that hours of operations will be in compliance with city ordinances.
Very good.
That was seconded. All those in favor? Oh, Counselor Bartley.
Well, if that's the case, if that's the intent, why do we even have it on the permit? Why do we even have the special condition on there? I mean, to me, just delete it. I mean, it's superfluous, right?
Okay.
I mean,
Sure, I'd be amenable to that. I mean, I don't think we need to create additional conditions. I think that we're in the habit of trying to create some uniformity across the applicants. And so this is a carryover from previous, special permit applications. And so I think that it's fine to just say we could delete it if it is going to comply with city ordinances, and they have to comply by city ordinances. So yes, it is.
I'd just like to offer a
redundant.
friendly amendment that we just delete it, and then we'll just, like I said, Mr. President, we're all kind of new at this, whether it's, we've been doing it for 3 years, but still, it's pretty, I mean, none of us are experts at it, so I think, so those conditions are, half of the ones I came up with when I was on ordinance, and so this is kind of one of them. But if there's no real need, if we're just saying that they're, going to obey city ordinances, I don't really think we need to make it a condition on a permit then. So I would just make a friendly amendment to the ordinance chair's amendment, just say we delete, I'm sorry.
Item number 6,
Number
condition
six.
6.
All right. Counselor McGivern.
Just to echo and add something to the other chair's comments, not only was Four Trees' presentation to the point, and maybe it is because it was a blue-collar type of approach in their own words, it was very detailed and very impressive in terms of what they want to do and how they're going to do it, and also very convincing with their experience. What was also impressive and convincing was that the owner of the building, 1 Cabot Street, was present and answered many of our questions. And just remembering that 1 Cabot Street was the end of what was known as Denison National, and I forget how many buildings that Denison National had, Mike, but it had to be about 4 or 5 in their heyday. And unfortunately, even in the end, what was left of Denison National was one division of their company, and the city ended up taking over the property when the 2 owners foreclosed or actually went tax delinquent on the property itself. And unfortunately, we held that piece of property for too long. Our new owner has already made some incredible improvements to that building, which is probably one of the key gateway buildings coming into the city of Hoyoke over the Willimantic Bridge. The building looks better. There are other tenants in there. He answered our questions about parking. He answered our questions about security in terms of other tenants and the makeup of the building. It's all been thought out. It is all part of the plan, and it was just impressive to have them present with his new tenants and to hear a good presentation, which I think not only will the applicants benefit and be profitable, but the city of Hoyoke will also.
Anyone else? Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. I thought the presentation was excellent. I was also very pleased to hear that EMB Ventures will be still doing agricultural crop raising in that building. They're planning on doing that, so I was happy that they weren't being replaced. That's another position where there's going to be additional jobs for the residents of Holyoke. The one concern I had, and the one concern I had with both of these was parking and traffic. You're going, and I know they're going to do their best effort to make sure we don't end up with traffic jams, but I would just encourage them to be aware that if something happens, we need to find some way to move traffic to get them in and out of where their parking is.
Anyone further? There's no one, Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to I want to make a comment, but I would just want us to vote on that amendment
Yep.
first, because we haven't voted on it.
All right, so the amendment, the motion is to delete 6 in its entirety. That was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Just under discussion, Mr.
So
President?
6 has been removed. Back to Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, just for as a refresher and just for whenever newer councils are here. So this is a building at 1 Cabot Street that's, when you cross over the Willimantic Bridge, it's immediately on your right. It's a pretty massive structure. I think it's 200,000 or more square feet. And the city had it in tax title for a while. The city took it over. The city put forth, OPED put forth an offer, and we voted on it. We voted it down because it was an offer for $10,000. And then the city went ahead and re-advertised it, and the highest responsible bidder was the present owner right now, and he closed on it a year ago, November, for $200,000. So it was 20 times the original offer that was originally put forth by us. It's not nearly what was left due and owing to the city for back taxes and penalties, that sort of thing. However, $200,000 is a lot better than $10,000. I do have an order somewhere in the back part of the agenda relative to some of the properties that the city sold, at least in the last 5 or 6 years, just to see what kind of revenue we generated. I know that there's been other orders, Mr. President, especially in the last session, in particular with regards to pilots. I think there's another order on this agenda relative to nonprofits. So I'm not saying that Holyoke's in the business of making money. That's not the point. But the point is we've got to be able to pay our own way. And the hope is that by taking some of these actions, by cautious review, that we can do a little bit better. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, the same OPED that put the $10,000 before us ultimately put the $200,000 before us. So I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying we have to, when we get an offer for $10,000 on something like that, we just have to be cautious and careful. And by the way, that was a unanimous vote too. It wasn't like it was debated. We blew it out of the water completely. But that's what we got for an offer. It wasn't good enough. But they went back to the drawing board and did a nice job and got a better offer. And now, fruit's being born, because it looks like we've got a valuable property. And then when Amtrak sails across that bridge, they're going to look, I think, under Mr. Casano's leadership, they're going to look at a very attractive, iconic building as a gateway to Holyoke, as Ms. McGivern just said. So I think those are all wins, and I look forward to supporting this. Thank you.
Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, I just want to briefly support this change here for 4 trees. I watched the meeting from home, and it was very thorough. Anytime you can get a building and get a tenant in a building, that's really, taking a building, a spot, and providing jobs for the city and tax revenue is a really a plus for the city of Holyoke. So I want to thank them for coming into our community and making a go of this in our city. Appreciate it.
So the motion is to pass the first reading as amended, because we took away item 6. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is to pass the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion is that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for.
Are we
Special
ordaining this, or we just granting a special
Oh, sorry,
permit?
Oh,
approving.
it's actually a special permit, so
Yeah.
granting the special permit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Special.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Graney,
No.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Libby, sorry,
Yes.
Yeah.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez. Yes. Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
12 yeas, 1 nay.
With your vote, you approve the special permit?
It's got to be 11-1, Madam Clerk, right?
Oh, yeah, 11-1.
11-1. 10B. Committee on Ordinance was referred in order for a special permit application for Hoyok 420 LLC, DBA Hoyok Cannabis at 380 Dwight Street. Application be approved with the following conditions. That the owner of the building always pay commercial property tax rates to the extent allowed by federal, state, local laws during the duration of the special permit, that the business retain a minimum of 30 Hoyok residents for non-security jobs, that hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired police officers or retired members of a police department who now live in the city of Hoyok. There's no consumption allowed on site. There shall be no deliveries. Hours of operation, I'm sure we'll get to that in a second, currently reads at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays. 7, applicant must be in compliance with the recommendations from the 2020 city engineer. 8, a parking and traffic mitigation plan be submitted before opening. And number 9, that the Hoyok Police Department must approve the opening day plan.
Motion to pass first reading.
Motion is to receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Or discussion, Councilor Lisi?
I might want to just take care of that item number 6 and amend it on the floor so that it's deleting item 6 altogether, the same we did for the previous special permit application.
Second.
So motion is to remove item 6 as a condition. It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so this is.
President, just a point of order. I don't think we're ordaining this one either, right?
No, this is be a
Okay,
special.
so I heard we're passing first reading, so this is just a pass.
Motion is to receive, adopt.
Pass this,
Oh,
I mean, it's
sorry.
special permit, right?
It's all
That's
good.
okay, it's all good, don't worry about it.
So, motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Yep.
So, thanks. So, we're going to amend condition 6 so that we're deleting it altogether. And then, Holyoke 420 LLC is going into 380 Dwight Street, which many of us know as the old Canal Gallery space. So this is another building that is being turned around rather quickly to offer a number of retail locations. This building is also, I think, at like nearly 80% tenanted at this point. It's a very similar sized retail establishment that they're looking to open here at Holyoke 420. They are also anticipating about 200 customers a day or 400 trips over the 12 hours that they're going to be open. They are not doing any cultivation in association to this particular establishment, but they are pursuing other grow projects independently of this retail site. They also, I want to say, came very prepared to the ordinance committee meeting. I think that we've been through a number of special permits at this time where people are anticipating our needs in advance of what we're actually asking of them. So that's really nice. They are going to have about 20 full-time equivalent positions over various shifts at the site. And they do meet all of the parking requirements that they need to meet according to the zoning ordinance. Although I think that per the letter from the city engineer, they definitely want to ensure that a parking and traffic mitigation plan is submitted to the engineer in advance of opening. Let's see. And then other than that, the only other thing that's on here in terms of conditions is that the Holyoke Police Department must approve an opening day plan. They are anticipating opening up in, I had it on here just 2 seconds ago. I think it was late spring. So they're already moving through the process quite quickly.
Councilor Bartley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. That was again, I thank the ordinance chair, she did a nice job running the meeting, and good summary. My only question, which is I should have raised in the last one, but I said I didn't bring my computer today, my bad. But I certainly had a question that night. and it was because the first time I was hearing it, after going through every single one of these, and I've been on the ordinance committee or in the audience for every single one of the special permits, not one have I missed. And so every one of Holyoke has come through, I've heard them all out, but that was the first time, and I heard for both applicants, relative to a requirement by HPD to have armed security mandated. Now, I did not see that in the security plan, the standard security plan letter. I've never seen it. I haven't seen it in writing to this date, Mr. President. And that night under discussion for the ordinance committee, we did raise the issue, and I don't know if the ordinance chair had a chance to speak with HPD on this, but I want to hear at some point, how is this mandated? I mean, is it under city ordinance? Is it under state law? Do they just have carte blanche to impose a security measure with armed security on there? I don't know if they do, but I certainly want to hear about that, and I want to know if that's been the case all along, because I never heard it once prior. So, thank you.
If I may?
Counselor Lisi.
Thank you. So it was a big surprise to many members of the ordinance committee to hear that armed guards were being required by the police department of the applicants. And we sent a note over to Captain Moriarty, who responded that this has been a requirement of all applicants since day one in the city. And he sent over a list of security mandates that the police department currently requires. I think that it's worth having filing an order, having a larger conversation about the 6 requirements that they're creating. And I think we should also understand from where they're deriving the authority to create these mandates, because as far as I understand, it's coming at this point in time from the language in the ordinance that says that the police department must approve a security plan. And so these are part of the requirements that they're creating there. However, as far as I understand, the Cannabis Control Commission does not favor having any sort of armament around the drugs and money in the industry. So I don't know if we still call them drugs because it's not an illegal product anymore, right? And in fact, as far as I understand,
Yeah, nicotine's a drug.
Alcohol's a drug.
All right.
okay, I'm just making sure I'm using the right language. Thank you.
I'm just getting prepared for my game night show. Just trying to think.
Didn't you used to sell pharmaceuticals, Jimmy?
I did, 15
Attaboy.
years.
Pharmaceuticals. Just, to the point, as far as I understand, the Cannabis Control Commission doesn't want any sort of armed guard on the transport vehicles. So it would be worth having a conversation with the police department about like where these requirements are coming from and why they make sense from their perspective. And I think it should also be noted from where they're deriving the authority to create these requirements. We should just be reviewing all this at this point in time. But this is, again, a bit of a sidebar to the application that's before us. I think we're satisfied with the presentation that they made, and they're on track to open in late spring. And, yep.
Counselor McGivern.
Thank you. I think the Veteran Ordinance Committee did a great job on these, because I remember not too many years ago when we were in awe about this industry being legal in Massachusetts and coming not just to the city of Holyoke, but the communities across Holyoke. And I know a lot was made on both the state level and the local level, which is all good, and regulation is all good. But when everything is said and done, it's a business proposal in front of us, and the Ordinance Committee handled it well. It's a good business proposal by an LLC who understands the business part of what they're doing, understands what they need to do both to work with the state and to work with the community itself. And I think why these things are very important is because we are so property tax, we are so revenue strung with our budget requirements that this new industry is helping a lot in terms of balancing our budget and helping a lot in terms of making us solid in financing the services that we provide as a city. Just a reminder, and I didn't say it at the Ordinance Committee, but I'll say it this evening, is we have it's not just property tax, it's also a host community agreement that's pretty generic, that, except for a couple of the early medical manufacturers that we adopted, it's in place. The host agreement has to come through the city of Hoyoke. Whatever revenue comes in must be monitored by the auditor's office, and the spending of that money must be agreed upon through the city of Hoyoke. And I'm not saying that for any other reason than to make sure we're all on the same page, because that is the only way that a host agreement can be, demands or requirements can be met. It must come through the city itself, the revenue.
Counselor Graney.
Yeah, just a question through the chair. I thought that marijuana was illegal with the federal government. I'm not sure if it is or not anymore. I know it's legal in the state of Massachusetts, but I think the federal statute still has marijuana as an illegal substance.
No, you're correct. But state-wise, they're implementing their set of rules. Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, just two things. I appreciate the ordinance chair again, and I just want to, this is one. One, I just want to get the captain's email disseminated to us, so I can think about what it says. If
I'm sending it now.
Rebecca would send it to Ryan, and Ryan could send it out to all of us, or at least those who want it. I want to look at it, and then I want to understand what it says. Second of all, I just want to follow up on the finance chair's point that he just raised, which is a darn good one. But I don't know if he was considering Councilor Murphy's order that was discussed in finance about 3 months ago, relative to how those funds are disseminated. But I think the point's an excellent one, and I haven't heard any feedback from Room 1 on that order that was just looking for a discussion as to where those funds, you take the whole pie. I don't remember how the breakdown was, but it was 20% here, 30% here, and the rest to the general fund. But if the maker of that order wants to really move it forward, then the maker of that order may want to consider filing an ordinance change and putting it into law. Not that I'm saying all our laws are passed, i.e. the zip cars, or adhere to the zip cars, but at least there's a shot that it would be followed. So I don't know if the finance chair had a communication from the mayor's office. I have not seen it, or if the maker of the order had a communication from the mayor's office relative to that. I thought pretty reasonable suggestion. So where those funds are going, Mr. President, just like I'm pretty sure the funds that the city gets for that I just referenced earlier, and my order talks about in a minute or two about the sale of properties, Mr. President. I'm assuming they just go to the general fund, and I've heard the finance chair over the course of my time here, and I agree with him more now than I used to about pigeonholing funds. I understand that, and I understand his argument, and it's a darn good one. However, there are occasions, like the recycling, when we did that, there are occasions where we want to see funds from certain revenue sources targeted for specific things. For example, I think what Councilor Murphy says, infrastructure. I mean, that's kind of a winner for every ward in the city. So without belaboring it, I'll end there, but just for your consideration. Thank you.
Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I have filed several orders regarding community host agreements, and one of them was related to developing a strategy as to, as money comes in, where are we going to place that money? And I believe we amended it so that it was 20 or 25% to stabilization, 45% to capital improvements, and it might have even been 55%. Councilor Sullivan, you, I think, made the motion for the amendment. And the goal is this is going to be new funding coming in, and we have a chance maybe to start planning for the future and still take care of some of the needs of today. So I have not heard from the mayor. We had the meeting, and the mayor was not at the meeting with the finance. I'm hoping they'll have another meeting, and I'm understanding
How about the deputy mayor? He get back to you?
No, he did not.
Oh, okay.
I also have one other order that I believe I filed with Councilor Sullivan, and I may have filed it with several others, and if it was several others, pardon me for not remembering. And that was to give us a current listing of all community host agreements, what the expected or the anticipated opening for those cannabis industries would be, and as best as possible, I got to assume that a business opening up has to have some financial consideration as to what kind of business they expect to do. And I have had email conversations with the mayor about that. Basically, I have not got a response telling me other than he would check with Office of Planning and Economic Development, and that was probably a month ago now. The order, if I'm not mistaken, is about 2 months old now. And it would be something that would definitely provide some information to the city council, and also would go complement the order regarding where we're gonna start to spend that money. And if it does require an ordinance, I mean, I don't think we can keep putting things in and then just having one, everything goes into one account and then has to come back. I mean, we need to have some planning as to how we're gonna use this money. This is something that we're anticipating. We need more information so that we can plan it correctly. And if we do that, I think, you know, the industry wins, we win, and hopefully each of the sections of the city finds out that we're getting better service and doing some capital improvements.
Councilor McGivern.
The point is well made by Councilor Bartley and Councilor Murphy that we do have to have planning. We do have to think about where this additional money is coming in and where it's going. I just want, I'm trying to take it a step further. In the Finance Committee, we'll do whatever we can, and I think David has a good idea that maybe part of this needs to go into ordinance, because if you read the host agreement language, part of it talks about and I get the intent, about donating to charity, donating to not-for-profits. I understand why that's in the host agreement language itself, but it's become very dangerous. And I think it's become to a point where if someone in the marijuana business itself decides to donate to a charity or donate into a not-for-profit, with the help of the ward councilor, you know, we're putting ourselves in a position which no city councilor should be in. And that's why money comes back into the general fund. Designating where it goes, if there's a way to do it, it's mass finance laws are a little bit tough in that area, but certainly we can put recommendations into what we think and get the mayor and the financial planning, you know, people to say, let's start thinking about how we're going to use this money as it comes in. It's one thing to balance the existing budget, but it's also, I agree, another thing to put it into infrastructure, capital improvements, things that we need to do, things that we need to plan about. But the host agreement, you know, language scares me. And I think we you know, I think I'm not going to go any further into it, but there is some stuff that's going to be coming out that is going to open up some eyebrows and open up some, is that a language? Is that part of the game show? Councilor Leahy, open up some eyebrows? I don't know. Open up some eyes in terms of how money should be coming in and be audited and be watched over by the city. And that's a key. In any time we are dealing with revenue in any industry, not just this industry, auditing and accountability must be foremost and on top of every dollar and every cent.
No further discussion.
On the motion to receive and adopt the committee report.
Motion is receive, adopt, and grant the special permit with the conditions removing item 6. Clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 10B.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
No.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
11 yeas, 1 nay.
For your vote, you approve 10B. 10C and
10C
D.
and D as a package, please.
Take up as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
They're both missing legal form, so if we don't mind tabling them.
Motion is to
table,
table
can I just-
10C and D.
Could I just ask a
Make that
question?
motion?
Could I ask a question?
May I?
Go ahead.
I've almost got my act together on this, so my apologies to the finance chair, because he's been waiting patiently on this, but I'm in contact with Mr. Cassidy at the Division of Standards, and Mr. President, I was also ably assisted by the Weights and Measures 40-year veteran in the city of Chicopee, gave me a tremendous amount of intel on this, so I've almost got it prepared. I had to leave the ordinance meeting early. I just don't table this here. I don't want to have to go back to ordinance, but it's going to be kind of an eye-opener on how the city has to move forward. And I realize in the grand scheme of things, this is, peanuts. However, it does affect a lot of businesses, Mr. President. And if we just pass this like this without hearing what Mr. Cassidy from Division of Standards says, and he says he needs to get me on the phone and we've been missing each other over the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to circle back to him tomorrow. And then at that point, I will send emails to the ordinance chair, to the finance chair, and to you, and obviously to Ryan as well, and we'll just as a summary as to what he says. So all counselors will have what he says moving forward. So
All right, so
there's that.
10C, which is a committee on ordinance, was referred in order that the fees in section 10234 of the city ordinances be increased as necessary. 10D is the committee on ordinance was referred in order that the city council review and update the necessary section of 102-34. Motion is to receive as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is to table because they don't have legal form as of yet.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah, Council Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and I was on the, when we had all these meetings, and I've got two lists, so I just want to make sure that, I've got one list that has over 10,000 pounds for balance and scales with a proposed weight of 250. I've got another one with a proposed weight of 200. So I just want to know which one.
I don't have the list in front of me, but there was one list that was the actual recommendations that the building commissioner and DPW superintendent had put before us. One was just referencing where they got their numbers from, but then the other one was about the actual proposed changes. But if we're going to get different information, we might as well send it back to committee and have the discussion all over again.
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that motion.
Councilor McGivern?
Now I disagree, with all due respect. I filed this last February on behalf of the city when it was noted that we are losing money on these fees and scales. We've been losing money for decades on this money. Remind you that we used to have a sewer weights and measure, a part-time person who did all this, went out there and billed people and collected the money and followed up on the collection of money. The DPW took this over for what reason, I don't know, because it has nothing to do with the DPW. And even the building inspector was good enough to do some work on this and to give us some idea about the table, an idea about what the surrounding communities, our administrative assistant did some research, and he got a number of the different communities and what their fees are. Matter of fact, the table that Damian Cody gave us gives us almost the entire state. The amount that Councilor Murphy is pointing out is one of the few differences on the proposal that was from the building inspector himself. And we questioned that, and it was questioned in committee. And the 200 to 250 is, it's one, half a dozen, 1/6 the other, and one needs to be adopted, obviously. But we can't go on bleeding because the mayor's made a decision not to fill this position, which means the state now takes up the slack and the state does the work. These are gas pumps, Stop and Shop scales, Stop and Shop cash registers. These are things that, every day, we don't even realize it, but if they're not calibrated, we could be getting ripped off with the way digital financing works these days, whenever you go to a store, whenever you go to the gas pump. And I have no problem, because I think Councilor Bartley's done a great effort, took on this and has done, I know he's done the work, and I have no problem waiting to hear from Councilor Bartley's effort. But we can't just put this back in committee. It's time to get something in writing. David can come up with some good numbers. I think that's great. But we need to adopt something because we're bleeding in this area.
Councilor Bartley.
Everything the finance chair said is true. That's all accurate. The only thing that is questionable, and that's why Mr. Cassidy's got to, it's chapter 98 of the general laws. How about that for a memory bank? City of Holyoke is too large to have the Commonwealth serve as the weights and measures person. And that's what Mr. Cassidy's going to say to me and to the mayor when he gets a call back from the mayor's office. And what I want to ascertain from Mr. Cassidy and from the very helpful gentleman, Mr. Wilk in Chicopee, is when he said, Bartley, we're, not only is Holyoke undercharging, you're missing a bunch of them. He said, you probably won't be able to pay for the service, but you can come close. So Mr. Cassidy said, the Commonwealth, the days of the Commonwealth doing it are numbered. And that's what I want to get all that and get that all to you disseminated. And I will have it well prior to the next meeting. So we just have to figure out a game plan.
So the issue really here is it seems to be vetted in ordinance, but now we're waiting for the true numbers to be in legal form, which then would answer the question as to is it 200 or 250. Once it's in legal form, that's the number you're looking to vote on.
Right.
So to send it back to committee to have the legal form come back, I don't think that. So tabling it is currently on the floor, so Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I have no problem saying it to the law department to be drawing legal form, and, I mean, one of these rates gets us approximately 13,000, and the other one gets us approximately 15,000, based on the estimates that we receive, so I just want to know which one, and I mean, if it comes in and it's the lower one or the higher one, I'd be okay, because I do agree with what Councilor McGivern and Councilor Sullivan and others have said, that we are losing money that everyone else is getting, so, but,
You'll need to know it when it.
yeah, which one is going to be, should be answered, so.
Okay, Councilor Lisi.
I just want to state that, number one, we're losing money because we're undercharging folks for the services that we're rendering. And then number two, we're losing money because in the absence of some staff member of City Hall who's doing the work of our weights and measures personnel, we're using somebody from the state. So we're paying a state rate and a state wage, Boston wages, for somebody to do that work out here. And so we're, in effect, losing doubly because we're undercharging for the work that's being done, and we're paying out someone doubly for the work that they're doing because they're coming in from Boston to do that work out here. So I do think it's urgent. What we could do is table it and ask legal to circulate legal form in advance of the next meeting, and then we'd have a chance to review it, and we can amend on the floor if there's any amendments that want to be made at that point in time. I think there's also an opportunity for Councilor Bartley to get any additional services that we should be charging for over to the legal department, and then we'd be able to review that draft in advance of the next meeting as well.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, just for housekeeping, I'd be willing to make a motion to withdraw 10C instead of tabling it, just to clean it up and just have the one
Second.
10D out there.
Is that what committee?
I think that's where the conflict between one schedule and the other schedule comes from.
Okay, so why don't we just leave them tabled so we don't
Yeah.
lose the confusion here.
I'll work with Crystal on getting all the language over to her to consolidate and draft into legal form. So in the meantime, we'll just table it for the next full city council meeting.
So the motion is, Councilor McGivern?
It just, Councilor Bartley made a good point. I'm kind of glad that, the state is saying they don't want to do this, is our sealer and weights is still on the books. It's just not been appointed.
Thank you. Coffee shop, Joe.
So C and D, table. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
10E and F as a package, please.
Motion to take up E and F as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? E is to whom is referred to no parking except load and unload restrictions on the northerly side of Sergeant Street between Main Street and the alley be eliminated. That be adopted. F is the Committee on Ordinances referred in order that the city council asked the city engineer to review the parking on Sergeant Street between Main and Ray Street and recommend the best locations to have 4 parking spaces as 30-minute parking. The request should be from 11 to 7, Tuesday through Sunday, and the recommendation forwarded to Ordinance Committee. Have considered the same, recommended that be adopted.
These are both going to be amendments to the traffic ordinance, so receive, adopt, pass the first reading.
Motion is to receive, adopt, and
Second.
pass the first reading.
I'll pass the discussion over to the maker of the order, Councilor Murphy.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, both of these relate to a new business, Boston Bud, which is hoping to get opened in a very near future. Originally, we were talking February, now we're talking probably March or April. But they're looking to get some parking in front of there, and we tried to do 30-minute, which there was 30-minute parking there originally, but it was different hours, and these are now related to the hours that they do the business. Removing the other ones just try to create more parking for other people that live there, because right now it's a loading area. It was originally a loading area for Weinstein Furniture, which is no longer, obviously, and hasn't been for a while. So we've got restrictions that have no valid purpose. So the engineer recommended both of these, and I would appreciate it if we could move these and give the business a chance to open up with the best parking they can get.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, motion was to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass second reading?
Motion is to pass the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 10E and F.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Greenie,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
You voted, you approve both. 10G, Committee on Ordinance was referred, nor that the city engineer provide recommendation for temporary parking in front of United Bank, 1830 Northampton Street. Referred to ordinance, have considered the same, recommended that be approved, and recommendation of the engineer be adopted. And is
Motion to receive, adopt, and pass the first reading.
Motion to receive, adopt, pass first reading, or discussion?
I'll pass the discussion over to Council Bartley, the maker of the order.
Oh, well, thank you. This is pretty straightforward, and it's a little block, and I want to thank Councilor Anderson Burgos for co-sponsoring this and for helping me with the order. The purpose of this is for public safety alone, but it's because we put on the hours that we put on, it's not going to negatively impact Oakdale Dental or United, or People's United Bank, which are the two businesses that are going to be affected by this. So we have the ordinance at Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I couldn't think of the dentist's name, but Councilor McGivern forwarded to me Dr. Lakhmandani. I can't believe I forgot his name, and I apologize, but I thank you for a refresher. And so this is, once the signage goes up, it's going to really improve public safety when motorists are exiting the United Bank lot. If you recall, Mr. President, 2 years ago, we had a pretty good discussion relative to all the overflow parking from Holyoke Medical Center, which that's still the cause of the jammed up parking all along Courser and around Northampton Street. And if you travel to the parking at HMC any Monday through Friday, that lot is just completely jammed, and that whole street, Forster, and that other one, Isabel, I think it is, back there, they're just wall-to-wall cars. And so we were able to help them out a couple years ago with the Lutheran School parking, and now we're doing something similar for United Bank and for Oakdale Dental, and I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 10G.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Greenie,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you're approved 10G. 10H, Committee on Ordinance is referred. In order that 25-mile-per-hour speed limit be posted on Evergreen, Bray Park Drive, and Meadowbrook at locations determined by the DPW, recommended that be adopted.
Receive, adopt, and pass the first reading.
Motion is receive, adopt, pass the first reading, or discussion.
Thank you. This was filed by Councilor Bacon, and we learned through the city engineer that there are two different ways to enforce the citywide 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. If it's unposted, it has to be enforced by radar, which means that there needs to be a long enough distance to actually. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting it backwards. Yeah.
If we're doing this citywide, it was 1/8 of a mile.
Right. So you need 1/8 of a mile to actually track the individual's speed. However, if the sign is actually posted 25 miles per hour in an area, you can enforce by radar. Because speeding is an issue in this area, and it's just a cluster of very short streets, Councilor Bacon would prefer that the 25 mile per hour signs be posted to create a easier mechanism for enforcement.
No further discussion. Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mo-
Councilor McGivern.
Just to point out, I thank our engineer for noting that this, part of this was original, or is posted at 30 miles per hour, which, as we know, when we adopted, not unanimously, we adopted the 25 miles speed limit across the city. It does not replace anything that is posted above 25 or above. Those signs, unless the ordinance is changed, have to remain in effect. And I agree with the proposal on Evergreen. I think it should be 25 or even slower with the speed that happens on that street as they cut through. And I also agree with this on Evergreen because Councilor Bacon let us know after I asked the question that after 10 years, the speed humps are coming back.
Hey.
No further discussion. Motion is to pass the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the speed limit.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Leahy, LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you're approved, the 25 mile per sign. Now, there was no finance, public safety, no public service, no DGNR,
Tomorrow
no
night.
charter and rules, and no joint council or school. We're on to motions, orders, and resolutions.
Go to motions, orders, and resolutions. I just wanted to make a comment.
Yep.
Thank you. So I worked with Ryan last week on creating the ordinance committee agenda for the 28th, and what you'll see is we're basically doing a lot of housekeeping. So anything that was filed in advance of September of 2019 is likely to show up on the agenda, and we're going to ask people to claim them and say that they'd like to, work them through the process. If nobody claims some of these orders and we don't understand what they are any longer, we're probably going to get rid of them, dispose of them, give leave to withdraw, and things like that. So we'll circulate the agenda tomorrow. So take a look at it, and if there's things that you want us to save, even if you can't be at the meeting next Tuesday, send us a note, send me a note, and we'll hold on to it in the jacket for you. Otherwise, we're going to be working to reduce what's in the jacket at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 17 is from Councilor Sullivan. Order that the mayor, treasurer, auditor, assessor, tax collector, OPED, and solicitor meet with the finance committee to discuss consolidation of record keeping and the current status of all pilots. This needs to be included, detail regarding monitoring and the compliance with the conditions of the pilots.
I'd like to be added to this order, if you don't mind.
Adding Councilor Lisi, adding myself, anyone else? Councilor Sullivan to finance.
To finance.
Under discussion.
Our discussion, Councilor Lisi.
Just very briefly, I think this is a really great order. I think, what we just heard in terms of like host community agreements coming into the city and the auditor having to, ensure the accounting of them. I think that in terms of pilots, what we're finding is that there's no one hub that's collecting the information for where and when, or like where the pilots are, when we're getting money in from those pilots. And so I think we need to centralize or create some sort of like routinized process for how we're accounting for when a pilot is created and then when the money comes in, like from I don't know what to call it, like door to, I don't know. The full process needs to be better accounted for and established.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, as long as we're on a short discussion of it, what happened was I went to the assessor's office to get a list because we've been provided with a list before, which I found to be very incomplete and somewhat inaccurate and vague as to even termination dates or how long these pilots were good for. So at the assessor's office, I was told they didn't have a list. I was told maybe, I could try the treasurer's office. Went to the treasurer's office, they didn't have a list. I asked the treasurer, what happens, how does it work? She goes, well, we get a check and we send it over to the tax collector. Or where could I get a list? So it was, well, let's try the auditor's office. I asked the auditor, same thing. She told me that some of the pilots were kept in OPED, some pilots were kept in legal, some pilots were kept in her office, some were in the mayor's office. They're all over the place. So that's what triggered this.
All right, so we'll refer to finance, and we'll get that fixed.
Yep.
So, to finance, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 18 from Counselor Sullivan. The date be set for the first meeting of the newly formed Whiting Reservoir Study Committee. The chair be elected.
Please add my name to this.
Adding Counselor Bartley. And
We could send it, we could send it either DGNR or public service.
send it to,
Yeah.
to public service? That's where you're at?
We have to have, if I could.
Counselor Leahy?
Yeah, so thank you. It says, setting a date for the first meeting. We already authorized it,
Yeah.
went through the public service, full city council. So now I think it's on whoever's on the committee.
Committee's supposed to do it, that's right. But Counselor Sullivan, if you got.
Yeah, well, the committee's been appointed, all the people are there, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. Nobody, there's no leadership, there's no action going on, and everybody that's been appointed is asking, when are we having our first meeting? So I think it's up to this body to at least kickstart, jumpstart this thing and get it going. So I'm fine, then we could do it in DGNR.
But
Dave, would you
If
want to weigh in on
if I
this?
may, I was just talking to Ryan, and he suggested that if we just do a motion is to receive and adopt, he will send out a communication saying that the council has, and since you've been appointed, you can go forward with establish your meeting, kind of like what the CPA did. I wasn't trying not to listen to you, but Ryan was coming up with a good idea in a sense of what we did with the CPA, and then that way they can just either here or wherever they want to have their first meeting, and that way at least they know they can start. Would that be sufficient?
Can I ask you a question on that too?
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good solution. This is obviously a new committee. When we have a new committee, and it's not like this happens quite a bit, is what kind of education do we give new people regarding like the open meeting law and taking notes and keeping minutes and that sort of thing? Because that's gonna have to happen.
What I can do is, if this is received and adopted tonight, I'll call HR and I'll also call legal and see if, whenever that meeting is scheduled, that they can at least meet up that first meeting to give some guidelines.
Because we don't want to, Boston to get notified that, they're happening without, quorum, or if there's no minutes getting taken and that sort of thing. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Graney?
Yeah, could we suspend the rules and appoint a chair to the committee tonight? This
Wait,
body?
Howard Graney.
They,
I'm joking,
they
I'm
will,
joking.
they will vote to appoint whoever their
Well,
chair
if they
is,
set the
I think.
date for the committee, they can appoint the chair. The members of the committee could do that tonight, couldn't they? If we suspend the rules, couldn't the members of the committee appoint the chair tonight?
No, the members of the reservoir, the Whiting Reservoir Committee, those members will have to do it, not members of this committee.
Okay.
Good question, though. So motion would be to receive, adopt. I'll reach out to HR and legal. Well, legal's already here. They kind of got the heads up. So whenever they get back to Ryan, we can schedule it that way.
Sounds good.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 19 from Counselor Vacan, that the DPW repair potholes in the portions of Rock Valley Road between Southampton Road and the city line. Please send a DPW with a copy to legal. This motion be receive, adopt, send to DPW.
A copy to legal.
Copy to legal.
Copy to legal. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 20 from Counselor Vacan and Counselor Bartley, that the city council rules be added. The city council committee assigned in the prior term remain in effect for re-elected counselors until President-elect assigns new committees.
I would
So
say charter and rules.
Charter and rules. All those in favor?
All right,
All opposed? 21 from Counselor Bartley, in keeping with the tradition of the City Council, started in 2016, order that the members of the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee be invited into the special presentation from the City of Holyoke for the first regular City Council meeting in March. Please invite the Parade Committee Board, the Grand Marshal, Grand Colleen, the Court, the winners of the Parade Committee Award winners, and special invitation is hereby made to Holyoke native James Kelly.
a motion to receive and adopt?
Motion is to receive and adopt. All those in favor?
Todd, with the,
I'll organize all that stuff, Mr. President. I'll get all that going. I'll
with
get
the author's permission, can I also be included on that one?
Counselor
Oh, of course.
Leahy?
If I could be, this one in item number 24 as well.
And then,
Oh, hold on. Okay.
oh, you're getting aggressive here,
21
Jimmy.
is receive and
of course.
adopt. That was passed, added Counselor Leahy. 22
And I'll get the band here, too.
in the band.
That was
band.
good.
Love the band.
22 is from Counselor Bartley, order that the City Council suspend Rule 1 for its two meetings, March 2020, Tuesday, March 3rd is a statewide election, Super Tuesday, and Tuesday, March 17th is Evacuation Day, AKA St. Patrick's Day. I hope we can move the meetings to March 4th and March 18th respectively.
Well, I'll make a motion to receive, adopt, and
Second.
I'll have one issue with the March 4th. I won't be here, just to give a heads
Well,
up.
we're just under discussion, so.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would defer to the clerk, but I believe that she needs a room for the Super Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay, so we can't, so I would hope we can move this to the 4th. 'Cause, I mean, and then the other one on the 17th, I mean, I'm agnostic as to whether we do that or not, but if we, I mean, it's St. Patrick's Day, so
We've
I don't,
been here.
I
We've
really
been
don't,
here.
I just threw it out there. If anybody says no, then fine, because I know we generally meet Tuesdays, and I'm okay with meeting on Tuesday the 17th, but I said, well, since we're moving on if we're okay to move this to Wednesday the 4th, and then we can have Joe or Pete be the chair, meeting that night, or Jimmy, whatever, if we're okay with that, I said, well, if we don't have to meet the 17th, I'm,
Well, how about move it to the 4th? I'll just get a heads up.
what do you mean, no, Brenna?
Yeah, it's a tough, yeah.
Yeah. You know what we could do?
Well, but the show's got to go on, so.
Ooh, touche.
Could we do,
I don't remember that.
could we do Monday?
Yes.
Counselor, you have
I
the
have no recollection
Counselor
of that.
Leahy, you have the calendar?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the calendar now. So the 4th obviously
Oh,
is
and I got primary,
Wednesday.
that's right.
The 5th, so maybe, not that we want to have meetings back to back, but maybe the following week, which is the 10th.
Oh, we're an ordinance committee.
Well, there would be an ordinance. I'd move it to the 10th. I'd be okay with that if the clerk's office is up to midnight. I don't
Maybe we
want
could
them
just
coming
rearrange
back to
the
back.
schedule, the 10th and the 24th,
Well, you
of the
could,
2nd and 4th.
well, you could do what we normally
Well,
do,
that-
which is
But that screws up
let's say you
ordinance.
move it to the 10th, the second meeting, if you guys want. I mean, I have no problem coming in on the 17th. We did it once before.
Right.
But if we don't want to have that second meeting because of that issue, if there's anything pressing, there we go, we will call a special meeting. We've done that before with the election stuff.
Multiple times, yeah.
So I know we're trying to get all the members in from the St. Patrick's Day Committee. It's a great tradition that was started by Counselor Bartley. We don't want to miss that because they actually like it as well. And when the band does come in here, so if everyone agrees to the 10th, move it to the 10th.
All right.
And the 17th, I'll leave it up to the full board as to the 17th.
I like Councilor Leahy's suggestion myself. I know we're in kind of roundtable discussion here, but you have to ask the ordinance chair, so.
March is a 5 Tuesday month, so we can move ordinance to the 17th and the 31st if the members are agreeable to that.
So
There you
you're
go.
looking at the 10th and then what
24th?
was
It's
it?
good teamwork.
Yeah, there you go.
Jim, show me the work.
Yeah, so we're going to have our city council meetings the 10th and the 24th, ordinance the 17th and 31st.
Oh, wait.
Which one?
All right?
I won't be here
For what?
on the 31st. I'll be in Florida.
So
You weren't
currently, We
like
have
it.
March 10th
You wouldn't like it.
and March 24th.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? March 10th.
10th and the
10th and
24th, city
24th.
council meeting. Ordinance 17th and 31st.
All right. 10th and 24th, yes.
23. Or at the city, from Councilor Bartley, or at the city auditor compile a list of public building sales for the city of Hoyoke and any of the entities including HEDIC and HRA for the period of 2015 to December 31st, 2019. That the summary, where do you want this one to go to?
I'd like to send it to the auditor's office.
So
Bless you.
receive, copy to the auditor, but what?
Yeah, send it to finance, and then,
Then to finance.
and then we'll get a report from the auditor.
So receive, refer to finance, a copy to the auditor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Twenty-four from Councilor Bartley, order that the city council approve proclamation for Buddy Resnick and his retirement for 65 years, wow. Motion would be to receive and adopt.
So moved.
Is there a date that you have, or not sure yet?
I think he and his wife, I think, are taking a vacation, so I'll.
Florida, so, yeah.
So let's,
But you'll let,
I'll figure that out.
all right, so you'll let Ryan know. So motion is receive
Sure.
and
It
adopt.
could be added.
Mr. President, could I also be added onto that with Mr. Leahy, Mr. Barley? I happen to be his letter carrier for about 6 years, and 65 years is incredible. It's a little bit older than I am, so to work in that long, it's something, yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right, adding Councilors Tallman, Leahy, McGee. Motion is to receive and adopt, and you'll get back to a date to invite him in. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 25 from Councilor Bartley, or at the City Council amend zoning ordinance section 4.3, capital A8, to require a special permit prior to granting permission for use in all residential districts. So ordinance.
Yes, please.
Motion is to send to ordinance 25. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
If I may.
Councilor Lisi?
This is actually one of those items that's on the next agenda. We couldn't figure out what this referred to. So we will be interested in hearing what section 4.3A8 refers to.
Be happy to discuss that, but it's, may I, Mr. President?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's, so this was supposed to be set up for a public hearing, but since I filed it in August, it expired, so I'm filing it again. So it has to be, I'll just explain that in ordinance, but right now it's, it has to do with group homes, and so right now they can go into a district by right, and this would only allow for a public hearing process as opposed to by right.
Councilor McGivern.
Just a question, if I could, through the chair. What expired? What do you mean by expired?
Oh, yeah, through the chair. Right, so this is a zone change, and so what I filed in August should have been taken up, and it wasn't anybody's my fault. It was nobody's fault but mine. But by law, it's supposed to be taken up within 60 days from the date it was filed. Otherwise, it becomes stale and
Thank you.
expires.
Thank you. Got it. Thanks.
So this will go to ordinance. They have your old one, but this will now be on top of it.
So that's not, the old one can be deleted.
Yeah, and this will
Well, it's
take
on
it.
the agenda for next time, so we'll put them together and
Delete one,
figure it out
keep
from
one. All right, so to ordinance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 26. Oh, I already stole it. Thank you. From Councilor Bartley, order that the
Oh, DGR, please, yeah.
council, in accordance with Mass General Law, City Code ordinance, vote to approve the taking, and this would be the Jackson Street sewer separation project. So that would be DGNR.
Yeah,
All
you
those in
wanted me to
favor?
file it, so
All
DGR.
opposed?
Aye.
From Councilor Graney, that the city council be provided with a list of all nonprofits, including addresses, and parties responsible for their sites. Do you want back in a certain time frame?
30-day period, probably sent
Rebecca.
to the assessor as well.
So motion is to receive, what committee do you want it to go?
GNR?
DGNR, to DGNR. Response in 30 days. All those in favor? Oh, Counselor
Under
Lisi?
discussion. Thank you. I'm unsure if the city possesses some sort of list of all the nonprofits that are in the city, and I'm wondering if what you mean is the nonprofits that own property. So it may just be worthwhile to clarify, because there's going to be tons and tons and tons of nonprofits, but not all the nonprofits that are in the city are going to be owning nonprofits. So I don't know if those are going to be of interest of you, or if they're going to be able to be otherwise found.
I'm talking about potential tax properties.
So then
Owners.
the nonprofits that are land owning.
Including addresses of parties responsible. Yep. So it'd be all those who have buildings in the city. Counselor McGivern.
That clarified part of the point I wanted to make. It's a good order, and I know we've looked at this before, and I think we have to continue to look at it even more important these days, because two entities are going to appear big on this list. That's CHD and Gondera. Not speaking bad or good about their responsibilities and what the services that they provide, but they have a tremendous amount of property, not just in Holyoke, but in a number of sites throughout the Pioneer Valley. And it not only does it take it off of the tax rolls, but it oversaturates a community and sometimes a neighborhood with the services that they are providing to granted needy people, and whether it be a family shelter or a rehab center or a residential program for DMH has a number of properties, all well managed with DMH. But these are issues that have got to come out in not just Yale Street, but throughout the community, because we have been oversaturated for 4 decades now, and it's growing, not decreasing. And the battle everybody thought was the homeless and people being put into the hotels. That was nothing compared to what's going on with family shelters. That was nothing compared to what's going on with rehab centers, rehab houses. It's more than just taxes. It's an oversaturation on one community that needs to be brought to the attention of the powers to be on the state level.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more than what the finance chair said. I just want to add to that, is that there's the other side of the coin too, that there are some nonprofits such as VOC that choose to pay the residential property tax or the commercial property tax. So there's that side of the coin as well. I'm not saying that they're an outlier, although they probably are, but hopefully this order will illuminate some of that for us. But I think that if we're going to call out one side, I think we certainly want to be aware that there are other nonprofits that are trying to do the best they can. I'm going to make one other small point, Mr. President, that we have a major land rental agency in this city that pays a pilot. I mean, we're talking 900 units. We're talking 1,400 vouchers that pays a pilot south of $3,300. I mean, it's. I mean, these are just things that we have to sort of get our arms around, Mr. President. And I said it before. I'll say it. I mean, it's good, especially for newer counselors, that I think to a person here, we're all working or just recently retired, and this is a part-time gig, and that there are people in this building and in the annex that are doing this full-time. We've just got to get I know sometimes we ask a little too much of them, but for something like this, to try to even out the revenue streams, I just think there's got to be a little more input that we get from our full-time staff, particularly some of our elected officials, to really kind of, so we can move the city forward and at least not come into next fiscal year with a negative free cash deal like we have this year. So I'm hopeful some of this, once we shed some light on it, we can get our arms around it and see what we can do about it, especially what the finance chair said. Because at the state level, we've got to identify the problem and then present it to the people at state level. Hey, this is the bind you've put us in. Can you see about amending it and see, to help us out at the local level? Thank you.
Counselor Graney.
Yeah, not only that, but some of these places, they pop up all over the city. I don't know how they're approved or how they get there. I mean, Yale Street, there was big controversy over that. That's just one example. Steiger Road, now there's a group home up there. These things are popping up all over the city. How do they get there? They don't come through the city council, they appear. So we need to get a handle on it. These are all tax properties that we should be gaining tax revenue from.
Just to remind people, and maybe this would help legal, back when Mayor Plouffe was here and City Solicitor Ball was in the law department, they were working on a list of all nonprofits in the city at that time. And Attorney Ball had a sample document that they're trying to work with the nonprofits to see if they would, in essence, pay a tax to the city. Maybe they could go back and find that and see if they can piggyback off that, because that's a lot of work that was done, but has since, from my knowledge, it has gone by the wayside. So with that, for Councilor Graney, it would be to send to DGNR and a copy to the assessor within 30 days.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. President, can we suspend and take 28, 29, 30, and 31 as a package and
Second.
maybe consider an abbreviated reading?
I was going to do that, but now I'm going to read them in detail.
Or if you're going to do it in detail, I want the proper Spanish pronunciation as well.
All right, 28, 29, 30, and 31 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 28 is order that the presidential primaries in the city of Holyoke, which would be March 3rd, 2020. The polls will be open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Order that the city clerk give notice of the said primaries. Yeah, we're going to 29.
Yeah.
Then we'd have the wards, polling places from all over the city. Just make sure you look at this and make sure we're not missing one. I know the clerk wouldn't miss one, but then 30 would be the polling places for March 3rd, 2020 for the special primary, same listing of precincts. And then you'd have the special state primaries in the city of Holyoke for expression of senator in the general court, 2nd Hamden in Hampshire, which would be March 3rd, 2020 as well, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's both English and Spanish. Counselor Bartley.
Can I just ask the clerk a question through the chair?
Sure.
So, Madam Clerk, thank you for being here, as always. The polls, 7 a.m. to 7, we've always had 7 to 8, but I noticed that Westfield has 7 to 7, and I think Chicopee, I don't think they start opening up polls until 8 a.m. So I'm just asking the question, is
So
this
I think
something,
it's-
is this in the city's best interest, or is this something the clerk wants to
I think it's,
review?
I would love it to be reviewed.
Okay, so that's one thing, Madam Clerk. Can I have one more question?
Yeah.
Okay, the second one, this is for the clerk and for the city council president, but also for the other chairs here, is that I know we brought it up 3 or 4 years ago, because I brought it up, is we have a beautiful building, I affectionately call it the Taj Mahal, which is the senior center, and we don't use that for a polling place. I don't get it. And I would hope that that would be, that would be considered at some point in time. I don't know if that can be or not, but,
Well, I know, sorry to interrupt you, but I know they looked into that for Ward 6, but because it didn't abut, both 6A and 6B didn't abut the Ward 4 line, because you can do it out of ward as long as it abuts both
well,
wards, and it doesn't, but St. Paul's is actually one of the few, if not the only that I can think of off the top of my head, that we have to pay for to use.
well, which is my point. So soon we're going to be doing the census, so I imagine soon we'll be redrawing the lines, and would be my hope that would be taken to the senior center, so long as the seniors are all good, on board with all that. I would imagine they would be, but if they're all on board, that when we draw the lines, that we take that into consideration, then we can have that be a polling spot for next time, whenever we draw the lines. I mean, I've never been here when we drew the lines, but that's got to be, should be a thought. And then think about this. I mean, Ward 3, I mean, how many complaints did we have last year, Madam Clerk? about the.
Fire
the-
station.
Yeah, the conditions of the fire station are, you know, not ideal. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the one to move it away from Elmwood Towers.
Right.
But seeing how that fire station is not in the best shape, you know, we ought to be thinking of other spots where they can vote Ward 3 as well. So I would hope that the clerk could, you know, think on that for
As
between
far
now
as
and-
the time goes, I don't know if any of the counselors like Joe that have been here, when they changed it, I know that, I think state elections have to be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I think we did about 10
And
years
that's
ago.
why they changed it from 7 to 7, so that it wouldn't confuse voters. Some elections are open from 7 to 8, and some are open from 7 to 7. They did it all, so it always was 7 to 8, I think, right?
You're correct. I'll even take it a step further. The municipal 7 to 8, I call the Kevin Jordan hours, because Kevin was very high on keeping it open as long as we could, similar to what we do, what you have to do for state and federal. And I think the senior centers is great, but I would note on St. Paul's and to Councilor Hernandez that Ward 4 is the smallest geographic ward in the city since the city went to a ward system. It is also the heart of the city. It's the heartbeat. It's the middle of the city. It takes in everything into consideration of what we are as wards, because it's right in the very center, not just the center of the government hub, but the center of the city itself. But Kevin wanted the hours on the municipal level to go, you know, I think he wanted 7 to 8 or 8 to 8 at one time.
I know a lot of communities, like Councilor Bartley said, do 7 to 7 on municipal elections, so I wouldn't be opposed.
That'll be a new
Next
new
year.
order coming next meeting. As for your question on the senior center, when it was first built, we had serious problems in the sense that the Lutheran Church not shut down, but they no longer wanted us there for elections for good reasons. It wasn't a bad relationship. So we had to scramble quickly to find something. The fire station on Hampton Street was used once before. We almost had many accidents there. So that was a bad place. Sullivan School has always been an issue in the sense of whether or not it's great to go through the back. So we did ask that it go to the senior center, of which the Secretary of State was contacted, and we were told not a chance. So hopefully we can revisit that. But it has been requested because it was a brand new facility and it was handicap accessible. It met all the criteria except for what the clerk had pointed out. So we'll revisit it again and see if the state still says no. So motion is to take up 28 to 31 and receive and adopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
President, make a
30.
motion to suspend the rules to take up items 32, 33, and 34 for the purpose of adopting this evening.
Motion is suspend rules, take up a package 32, 33, and 34. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 32 is the injured on duty, so it'd be $19,782.20 from sergeants and patrolmen to injured on duty. 33 is $17,397.21 from sergeants and patrolmen to injured on duty. And 34 is from the fire department, so it'd be $2,115.71 from firefighter to injured on duty. 32 has seven. 33. Seven. The last one is 1. So for those who probably have not seen this, what we're doing is we're taking from the line item to pay those officers or firefighters, and we move it to injured on duty, so we're just moving the monies to the appropriate account to pay out of. It's not adding to the budget or taking away, it's the money that was already allocated. Counselor Graney.
Just a question to the Chair of Finance. These are contractual obligations.
Well, yes, injured on duty could happen for a very temporary period of time, like over the weekend for just a day or two. If an officer or a firefighter is injured on Saturday, anyone injured on duty has to report to a an assessment center where they immediately are assessed as to the injury. Is it temporary? Is it long-term? And they cannot do that on the weekends, so they do it, but they'll go Monday or Tuesday of the first chance that they get. So it's not contractual, but it's actually accountability of accounting so that we know we're paying the same salary, but during these periods of time when it goes into injured on duty, those are the hours that we did not get service, even though we paid the salary. The individuals have a right to their salary, obviously, but it gives the auditor and the mayor and the city council the ability to see, why do we have such a large budget in the police department? Why do we need more police officers, firefighters, and so on? It's just for purposes of accountability over the course of the budget.
Just in addition, is workers' comp involved in that at all?
It can be. If it does, that's separate. At some point in time, an individual will be assessed to go on to workman's comp if it's long-term.
Thank you.
All right, so motion is to receive, adopt, pass at first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
That's it. It's just, as I stated, it's something we'll do with the new ordinance that we don't allow any interdepartment transfers without our approval. It's a good ordinance, and this is just something that we do just about every meeting.
All right, so motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
You can make a motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for 32, 33, and 34.
Sullivan? Yes. Tallman?
Yes.
Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
For your vote, you approve those three items.
Mr. President, make a motion to suspend the rules to take up items 35 through 48 as a package and refer each of these to the Committee on Finance.
What about 49?
49, if we could take separate, I'll explain.
Okay, so motion is take 35 to 48 as a package. All those in favor? All those
Aye.
opposed? I'll do quickly.
If I could, just as we're going along, items 37 through 42 are going to be, I hope, very soon amended to one transfer, because this is all, I believe it's each of these items are all for the superior officer's contract. And even though we've asked the auditor to separate everything, this is the one time we need them to be coming as a package, because the one vote makes the difference of whether that contract passes or not. So Tanya promised me that she'll put it together as a package, but we'll put this, if we could put this in committee, we can bring the contract in hopefully before the next meeting, and take them up, because we'll at least know what the financial impacts are.
So 35 is 11,000 for pay fire chief. 36 is stabilization, $19,403 to the Quinn bill. 37 is $22,699 from stabilization to lieutenants. This is the stuff that Joe was talking about for the police contract. 38 is stabilization, $9,876 to captain. 39 is $36,845 from stabilization to sergeants. 40 is $2,809 from stabilization to in-service training. 41 is stabilization, $5,500 to education planning. 42 is $1,835 from stabilization to longevity. 43 is $7,107 from stabilization to overtime. 44 is $450 from stabilization to court appearances. 45 is the preparedness program grant. 46 is the 911 department training grant. 47 is the Shannon grant. And 48 is the STEP grant. All those are going to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Counselor, hold on. Counselor Bartley.
Yep, just a quick comment, is that if, I don't want us to lose track of our vote on December 17th, especially for any new counselors, because the rest of us were here, but we put in $750,000. If you recall, just 117,000, I don't remember the exact number, but 118,000 was to be reimbursed, and that's still in finance, by the way. That was for a resource officer to be paid for by the Holyoke Public Schools. So you got to subtract the 118 from the 750, and we should just keep our own running tally. I don't think this is gonna be complicated math here, but you should be able to at least keep a tally of the 750, because I can almost see the future, that we're gonna get requests that are gonna well exceed the 750, and just like we forgot about it. We forgot about so I just wanna keep that in mind, that is what we in fact transferred to stabilization. One of the thought processes when Council Sullivan made the motion, and when I seconded the motion, is that I identified on one of the mayor's 3 supplemental budgets, 502 or 503,000, again, I forgot the number, that included in that 502 or 503, whatever it was the contract for the superior officers. And I think Councilor Sullivan's number was a really more than a fair compromise, and we didn't all vote on it, but enough of us did vote on it. I think it was 7-6, but it doesn't matter. It passed, and we found some common ground on that. So, but 750's the number, and so we need to keep I think, do our due diligence, we should keep a tally of what's being requested from stabilization and what we in fact vote on to come out of stabilization, Mr. President. I don't think that should be the burden of, Ryan or any one of us. I think all of us need to keep our own tally on that and do our own math. It's, I'm just saying it for the record. Thank you.
Counselor Lisi.
Thank you. I definitely shared my skepticism that evening over the logic of putting that $750,000 in stabilization, because I think we will be, it will count against us in future accountings, especially when it comes to our bond rating. And I know that we had been given some sort of advice or counsel that it wouldn't be a problem. And I think before I'm going to vote for anything coming out of stabilization, I'd like to have that in writing in some way, if that's possible, that we won't, it won't count as a mark against us. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a hard time voting to move anything out of stabilization, and I don't know if we have time for the discussion here, but, why was stabilization, if it's just a line item, why was stabilization chosen over, I don't know, education or travel for the city council? I mean, if it's just a line item, so.
I can answer that. It was the DOR that said the only count that it can go into is stabilization. I recommended in finance to check what line item it could go to. I made an example. I didn't say it had to go here, but I said the overlay account. I said it could go in, I mentioned another account of which DOR fired back and said it can go in neither of those type of accounts. It can only go through stabilization. And I did ask the question, would it impact our rating because we're taking it to pay for cost? Their view was it wasn't, because on the record you were saying that it was being put in there to be taken back out as an accounting procedure. So it really wasn't per se to pay for costs of the city. It was the way to do the accounting measure pursuant to the law. Now, if they want to come back with something different, that's up to them. That's the discussion I had with them. But I will point out, we received 3 supplemental budgets on the last night to deal with tax classification and everything else. We also found out that there was a 4th that was held back. So to come to this council after it did all the work in June, to do the budget properly, to set it up, to then have your budget ready for free cash certification and go forward, to wait to the very last day and dump onto the city council at the last hour and say, go through it, good luck. That is poor accounting, that's poor planning. And that's not what this council should be burdened with on its last day of a meeting before a break and before task classification. So that was the conversation with DOR. The person is Matt.
Andre.
Thank you, Councilor, who I spoke with.
Is it possible, I mean, if you still have a line with him, do you mind requesting something in writing that states that it's an accounting procedure?
I do believe there was a letter provided to the mayor's office. So we'll ask Mr. Bloomberg to provide the
Forward
letter
that
that they
along.
received. Yep.
Maybe ask the mayor.
Councilor
Or the
McGivern.
deputy mayor.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with the president as far as the state, moving it into one line item. If we tried to have done those supplemental budgets that night, not only would it have been a nightmare, but would have been an unfair vote of because it was doing on the same evening of passing the first and second readings of a two-thirds vote itself. The stabilization, unfortunately, because of our history at stabilization, we'd hope that, that we could set up a line item that would be simply called similar to free cash. This money was what would have been our free cash, which would have been $1.7 million if the city didn't have to make up for discrepancies within the budget itself over the past 5 to 6 years. No, it was during that period of time that we didn't do our job and hire an auditor and take control over that department and take control over what we need to do, and that's accountability of every penny that comes into the city of Holyoke and every penny that is spent. We cannot appropriate money, only the mayor can appropriate the money, but the mayor needs us to say yes or no to every single penny that is spent in this city. And that's why we had to do it this way, and that's why we're looking at it coming out this way, because we can have some control. And if it's something that we didn't want in the budget in the first place, even though we didn't eliminate it by ordinance or didn't eliminate it by any other means, we can relook at it, but we don't have to say yes. Stabilization means we have to have a two-thirds vote no matter how many readings we take. At all times, we have to have a two-thirds vote. Senator McNary has weighed in on this too, is if the bonding agencies in Wall Street understand we purposely put this here for this purpose, they're fine with that, because they're not going to look, they're going to look at it as day-to-day operations, but they're going to look at it as prudent in terms of surviving the next 5 months of the 12-month fiscal cycle. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're going to take, and Councilor Bartley, I agree with you. I already talked to the auditor, and I took it a step further. I said, yeah, we're going to be doing our own counting of $750,000, both in committee, and I'm sure all city councilors are going to do it themselves. And I said, please, let the mayor know when we hit 750, the city council is all in, and then all bets are off. So we're going to take a close look at each of these. Please note that not just with what's coming in this evening, but what's come in the last 2 city council meetings, the finance committee is booked. I've penciled in, and the only person I haven't gotten to is our newest member, Councilor Bartley, is the next 3 Mondays. We have some executive sessions we have to do. We have some legal stuff we have to do with the, both with the contract that's on the table, and we have some meetings with Councilor Bartley, some emails, and Councilor Murphy's that I hope we can do in one agenda of getting DOR in here, getting the auditor in here, and getting everybody in here and clearing up the questions we have as to what happened in the end of before we set the final tax rate, what happened while we were balancing the budget itself, because I've never seen it done that way without the city council taking a vote. And I'm gonna ask DOR how that happened. And I hope DOR, I mean, I'm not saying DOR can't tell us it had to happen, but why weren't we voting on free cash? Why weren't we voting on those discrepancies? And I think we're gonna learn a couple things about what's going on, and I hope they're not as disheartening as I think they could be. But more important, we need to step forward, and we need to keep the budget going, we need to keep the services we provide going, and requests are legit, but we need to be able to control the amount of money that we spend, because we've depended upon the free cash format for too long. Terry Murphy's right. We need to know the entire budget come July 1, and we need to have a picture for it, both revenue and expense, and we've gotten away from that. We got away from that when Mike Sullivan was mayor. I understand why. I'm not saying it was a horrible thing to get into, but let's get back to July 1. We know the entire budget, and we know the revenue coming in to support it. So we're all in at 750 as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's each of you have your own choice there, but I think once we get through that 750, it's wait until July 1st.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have one more piece of that. I agree with everything that the finance chair said, but I think one entity we haven't heard from, with total radio silence, is our independent auditor. I assume it's still Melanson Heath. It is. But, okay, we're paying Melanson Heath to be the, so just, I don't want to point to new counselors again, because we're all just learning here. None of us are experts, I don't think. But we have this third-party entity called the Independent Public Auditor. We being the mayor, we contract with Melanson Heath Why aren't they coming in, which I hope the finance chair will consider, and why didn't their past audits identify these 60 some odd cost centers that were, or deficit, cost centers, what they are, that cost us potentially the aforesaid free cash that the finance chair just referenced. So Melanson Heath ought to have some kind of an explanation in concert with Mr. Andre from DOR and with our own auditor. I mean, how have these been lingering, one of them since 2011 and maybe before, but the majority, the vast majority of those were 2012 and forward. And they've lingered, and a lot of them are in HPD and HFD. I'm not being pointed out to anybody, not being mean, okay? Not being mean to anybody here. I called out for that once already. I don't want to hear that again. But a lot of them are those grants for the larger departments, Mr. President. So we need to understand what happened. How do we prevent it from happening again? And so hopefully that Melanson Heath will at least shed some light on this as well. Thank you.
We can file an order for that for next.
If we may want to file an order, because typically by now we have the end of the year report from Melanson and Heath, and we actually take it up in the finance committee or take it up wherever the city council wishes it to be taken up. And yes, they should be part of the discussion, because they were part, my understanding is they were part of the discussion with the Department of Revenue. And there is also an order that Councilor McGee had filed last year that references an email from the DOR, our local guy at REP itself. And we took that up a couple times. We never got him in to talk to us, but the understanding was that those discrepancies have been cleared up. They weren't.
Joe, do you want to file that or what?
It's all in committee. It's all with your order.
No,
with
I know it out, but Melanson Heath.
Oh, with the other one, yeah.
We'll file it.
You want to just file that, Todd?
Yeah,
I'll file it.
just in case we don't get the report in timely fashion.
All right, so 35 to 48 is to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 49.
Make a motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of adopting this evening, pass the first reading.
Motion is to take up 49. Motion is to receive, adopt,
Second.
pass the first reading. This is for $3,000 from stabilization to advertising. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. Our administrative assistant, this is our budget. Our administrative assistant pointed out to me that, and I don't remember the history, Ryan, but I think at the beginning of the year, this line item was cut or underfunded from what we requested. It's been a history over the last few years, which is fine. The mayor's always given us the money when we need it. This is what we use to advertise public hearings in the ordinance committee. This is what we use to advertise anything that is our responsibility when someone asks for a zone change and we actually become the petitioner itself. So if I understood Ryan this evening, he said he needs some money immediately to pay for some ads for some upcoming hearings that are scheduled that that's our responsibility to pay for. It's the first dollar that's coming from the $750,000, proposed to come from the $750,000, but it would come from stabilization. We would need a 2/3 vote this evening.
Councilor Bartley.
Obviously, I support this, but just through the chair to the finance chair, the mayor filed this, right, Joe? I mean, we can't.
Yes. Yeah, everything is filed.
All right.
It comes under my name, but it's from the mayor with the, drafted by the auditor after the mayor indicates what he wishes to do. But the
Okay.
mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. President, the mayor has to sign it before it gets to us.
So-
Has he
so-
signed it?
So Ryan requested it,
Yep.
and it was signed off by the mayor.
The real mayor or the deputy mayor?
It's a signature, it says mayor, and there's a
Being a wise
squiggle
guy.
line.
I'm being a wise guy.
So it has been signed off. So if there's no further discussion, motion is to pass the first reading.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Motion to
Aye.
pass the second reading?
Second.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the 3,000.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos. Bartley,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Leahy. Yes. LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
We
Thank
vote to
you.
approve the 3,000. Item 50 is from Councilor Murphy, order that the Public Safety Committee meet with the Chief of Police, Sheriff, Mayor, School Receiver, Ed Case, Betty Medina, Representative Vega, someone from the District Attorney's Office, and Congressman Neal's office to discuss concerns about the recent gun violence, including a discussion needed to include the following. Are there any federal or state grants available to increase police protection services around the schools, especially those most impacted by gun violence? If so, how quickly might the city be able to receive them? What action can be taken to improve the community awareness and reduce violence?
Making a motion be referred to Public Safety Committee.
Motion is to send motion is to refer to public safety with a copy to all the departments listed.
Could I, if you don't mind, could I be added to that order?
Adding Counselor Tallman.
Could I have a question, a
Oh, hold on.
possibility?
I'll turn it over to Counselor Murphy, the maker first, and then to you.
Yeah, this is, obviously, we're all aware of the tragedies that that have had, and it's created some major concerns. I had several calls pretty quickly after any of these incidents. One of them was from Dr. Reich requesting some assistance trying to get safer areas around those schools because of the shootings, and there were a number of parents offering or expressing their concerns. And I've been at meetings at Lawrence School for the Churchill Neighborhood Group, and concerns about families with getting their kids to come to school, and Councilor Lisa and Hernandez were there last week, have continually been expressed. So we need to find a way, and I know one of the things that was suggested is there's a COPS program that the federal government does provide, which can help improve some of the potential safety around schools, as well as one of the other aspects that I would like us to look at is to enhance a community policing. I think, and one of the things I'll consistently say is we got to all work together. It can't just be a criminal justice thing. It's got to be a community thing. And yes, police are part of that, but they need to be part of the community, and the community needs to trust. And so, one of my goals with this order and one of the goals with the meetings that we're having is to try to build that community feeling, that trust, to make people feel a little more comfortable, to get people to go to school. We have absences in schools, which then create other problems along the line. So we need to work on all of these kind of things. And I do hope that we will look at COPS grants, both in terms of protecting around the schools, but also in terms of enhancing community policing and other aspects. And I've been meeting with some professors of criminal justice, offering me some additional thoughts on how we might be able to improve the community. So that would be the goal of the meeting, and obviously I want to get as many people involved in that process as possible. And the COPS program does pay 75% for any police protection that is qualified for 3 years, and the city has only 1 year obligation, and the 4th year the city would have to agree to pay the full share. So I did a quick calculation, and we could get potentially 8 police officers for 4 years for approximately what it would cost us for 1 year and a third. So if we can do that and get some funding to improve public safety, but also we've got to build a feeling of community. So that's the goal.
Counselor Greene.
Yeah, I support this, this motion. I just asked Councilor Murphy before the meeting if the possibility of doing an editorial change from recent gun violence to violence involving the illegal use of firearms. I just wanted to throw that out, as an editorial change, but it's up to him.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate what Councilor Graney is suggesting, and I mean, obviously, I'm pretty confident they were illegal guns, so I would not have a problem with that. Obviously, the goal here is to stop violence, whether it be gun, whether it be knife, whether it be any other kind of thing. So I have no problem with making the amendment, and I certainly do not want to take someone's constitutional right away, but I do want to also make sure that we're aware that we need to work together. So I'm okay with that. If he wants to make a friendly amendment, I would accept that.
You want a friendly amendment, Counselor Greene?
Just instead of gun violence, I was just amendment to involving the illegal use of firearms. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just semantics.
So in section 1, are there any federal state grants available to increase police protection surrounding schools, especially those most impacted by gun violence, striking gun violence to illegal use of firearms?
Yeah.
That was seconded by Counselor Murphy.
So I just want to, as an editorial comment, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm not going to quibble about the language in an order, because we don't ordain orders, but I think the problem is really the way that the community is impacted by the violence that is a product of the illegal use of these firearms. So, like, people can use firearms illegally, and if no one is, like, injured, I don't know if we would have the same sort of concern that we do in our neighborhood. So I think that it is important to just, note that the violence that the illegal use of those firearms are having on our neighborhoods and our communities is the actual problem that we're trying to solve here. It's not so much the illegal use of the firearm itself.
Counselor Graney.
I'm not quibbling, I'm just want to clean up the language, that's all.
Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, I'd like to be added to this as well, and I'd like just to take the editorial privilege also here and inform the group here when we're, to Counselor Murphy's point about bringing the community together. I'd especially like to commend Officer Emo Morales, who yesterday, on his own time, not on overtime, not on department time, not through any special grants, took the initiative and went and addressed 135 youth of the city who were at the Paper City Basketball Clinic and took on head-on the recent violence and addressed it with the youth right there on the gym floor. And took about 15 minutes and gave them all a nice talk.
All right, so the motion was to change that language. It was seconded.
And
by
can I just
Counselor
make one
Murphy.
more comment?
Yep.
I should have been, I also want to publicly thank the sheriff. He has basically permanently given us 3 deputies that are assisting us, and Officer Cologne down with the facility on Race Street. And I know they were at the community meeting at Lawrence School. I'm expecting them at the community meeting at Morgan School. We've already talked about potentially doing a mentor program at Morgan School. I mean, and they are all, the sheriff's office is definitely part of trying to create that community. So I wanted to publicly thank him, and I should have done that first.
I'd like to be added to the motion. If, it's all right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
adding Sullivan, Tallman, Graney to
Lisi.
Murphy's. Lisi.
I would like to be added to the motion.
Thank you.
Should all be added.
Why don't we just add everybody if that's
We should all be
okay?
concerned, everybody should be.
And that's fine.
So adding all. So motion with as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 251. From Counselor Murphy, order that the Joint Committee of School and City Council meet to discuss the city doing all it can to move the MSBA process along. If not, what can the city do to accelerate the process?
Make a motion it be referred to the Joint City Council School Committee. And if
Motion
I
is
can-
to refer to the Joint
Second.
Committee. Under
And
discussion, Counselor Murphy.
If I could, to the chairwoman, I would, this is at the request of Dr. Zreik. It's my understanding that we need to get, and the mayor should be invited to this, and I think the auditor should be invited to this, that there's some financial pieces that are missing. It appears that MSBA is waiting for us to give additional financial information, and that potentially they might alter the proposal in terms of what they would offer and what they would allow us to do and increase the amount. Whether that happens, right now, supposedly there are pieces from the city that are missing. And so if we can make that meeting relatively quickly and make sure that we get the mayor and the auditor in here, as well as the receiver, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
So motion is to send to.
I want the mayor.
Joint Committee. All those in favor? All opposed? Counselor McGivern?
Counselor Murphy, when you said, or if I could through the chair,
Yep.
there are pieces missing for what the MSBA is willing to fund what?
There, as I understand it from Dr. Zreik, there are financial components that they've asked us to provide that to this point we have not provided to them, and they will not. They have indicated to him that potentially they might be able to alter their offer if we gave them this additional information. And so that's, the order is filed to make sure that we get whatever they need to give us a full picture, to give them a full picture, and then to give us a response that tells us what we are fully eligible to do, or if they are able to change anything. They may not, but Dr. Zreik has given me the impression that there is a potential if we provide this information, but right now, we are not providing it, so I'm.
But there's no proposal on the table that I'm aware of.
I'm only going by what, from what I heard from Dr. Reich, if they get this additional financial information, they could potentially create an additional funding source. I don't know exactly how to say that, but that's what I've been told. And that's why I filed the order to try to move this process along, because he's been trying, and it appears that he's been not getting the cooperation he needs.
All set, Counselor McGivern?
No, but
Counselor LeBron Martinez.
He recently sent us an email, right, that it was addressing the updated conversation with MSBA. Did everybody receive it from Dr. Strike?
no?
No, I don't think so.
Not everyone did? All right.
I think we all did receive it. I think are you talking about the November 19th letter when they meant, I'm sorry, may I?
Is it?
So there was a November 19th letter, and I think it recently came to us in our packages where it's basically what they submitted to the MSBA on the 19th when Sullivan, the mayor, Rep. Vega. Were you there?
No, I wasn't. I gave an announcement at our first meeting that yourself, myself, school committee member Devin Sheehan, Representative Vega, were invited into the mayor's office after the inauguration, and they gave an update. And it was actually Dr. Reich was asking for the mayor to contact the MSBA with regards to funding abilities, which then the agreement was that he would call Jack from the MSBA and get a hold of Cinder from bond council to then have certain numbers that we're not sure of, to then see of the city's ability to have any bonding capacity, if at all. As far as what building, what options, everything else, that is still unknown because they're still looking for kind of a funding source, if at all possible. So that's the information the MSBA wants to then move forward with their next steps. So we're, once again, as mentioned last time, is we're kind of waiting for the MSBA to tell us what they will approve or disapprove, but they still want information from us. Councilor Lisi.
And just to be clear, the memo that Gladys is talking about was sent to the full city council in our packets on January 10th. And it's a memo from November 18th of last year. It's the receiver speaking on behalf of the district to the MSBA saying, here's all the options. And I think we even saw this option in ordinance committee early on. It's like a rubric of options that we could consider to create the space that we need to educate the students in our district.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, and again, I did get that. I actually talked to Dr. Reich about getting that as part of our discussion as well. But again, at that point, he suggested that prior to doing that, we file this order because we're not going to get any additional information from MSBA until we provide them the financial information that they've been requesting. And so, he suggested we get a committee together, get the mayor in here, and make sure that we get it done. And that's what I'm trying to do. Right now, all those options are out there, but and certainly we better start considering what are our options come September and what's going to be our option in dual language and all the other programs that are out there. I mean, I think those are all valid discussions, and I also think the city council needs to be more directly involved in education, even though that's not our primary function. Obviously, it proved to be a major issue in the last year.
Hold on, Councilor Barnes.
Yes, I just got a question with this motion. Are we able to send a copy over to the school department to Liz LaFont so we can get this going and I can call a meeting?
Yeah, anything that we send to joint committee will go over to the school. The issue is, just for clarification for everyone, every other election cycle, we bounce back and forth as to who runs the meetings. Last 2 years, it was the school committee side calling the meetings, doing everything else. It now falls back on us so we can have the meetings here, wherever you choose, here, down school, whatever you want. but you will be setting the agenda and then giving them notice to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay, yep.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks, and Counselor Murphy's correct. This order he's filing is separate from other communications we've received. This is Jack McCarthy, and I can't lay my hand on the exact document either, so I'm doing this from memory right now. Jack McCarthy has specifically requested some backup financial data from the mayor's office. That's what he's looking for. I've got to assume that it's because they are trying to do something extra, but they are looking for some additional information, and they hadn't been provided it. And I think that's what this is about.
Counselor McGivern?
Just remind everybody, the joint committee, I've never received an agenda or an announcement that there's a meeting, whether we're doing it on Liz's side or our side. And yet we're putting something here that's extremely important to the city, and I don't even know if I'm gonna be invited to the meeting.
Oh, no, you will. 'Cause
I
now
never
that-
have been, though.
Well, that was the last 2 years.
This committee's been ongoing for at least 10 years.
Well, I can
No,
guarantee.
nothing to do with the chairman. I'm just saying.
I'm not the chair.
There'll,
Never been invited to this meeting.
there will be notice, there will be, just like any committee, you'll receive the agenda, the time, and I'm assuming it's all gonna be here in this room, so that will make it easier. And any communication that goes out to you will also go over to the school side in order to be distributed over there. Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, just to go, I agree with you, Councilor McGivern, because I know when we had the meeting, it was at Dean, and it was an order that I had filed about school absenteeism and trying to deal with that. Two things happened. Number one, I don't think anybody else knew about it. I knew about it because it was my order, and I know the committee people knew about it. And then the other aspect to that was it wasn't televised. So the end result of that meeting was there was very little public knowledge of what happened at the meeting other than the people that were there. So we do need to make sure and in this case, it's Gladys that is the chairwoman of the committee, so. But we need to make
Now.
sure that we're all aware. Now, yes.
Oh, I was before. So.
But again, I do think that's an issue because we should be, if there is a meeting, everybody should be aware of it. And I think there were meetings that took place regarding the schools, the proposals for the schools that weren't necessarily advertised. So I think having it here makes a lot of sense and we'll make sure we
We'll
get it
do a
covered.
lot better here.
Councilor Murphy's order on absenteeism was a very well-constructed order, and I heard it was a great meeting, just there was a lot of absentee councilors, because we didn't know about it.
All right, so 51 to the joint committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? There are 2 late files outstanding. There is late file A, which is a SMRP grant, which should be sent to finance. All those in favor? All opposed? Another one is a request for a special permit use with drive-through services, proposed Holyoke Landing, Lower Westfield Road. Go to DGNR. This one, I said to do as a late file because they were coming in on Friday, but they had the Thursday deadline, because they forgot Monday was a holiday. And the gentleman called me, he said, I'm driving in right now. It was Thursday, but it was already,
What building
I
is
think, 3 o'clock. And I said, just drop it off when you can, we'll do it as a late file. So
And then the
we're
Melanson-
business friendly here.
Where?
Well, you heard that from
Two,
Boston Butt over
DGNR.
there. And
All
then-
those in favor? All
Aye.
opposed?
Well, did you want to do Melanson Heath tonight, or is you late filing that one, or what?
Want to do it for next meeting, or you want to do a late file?
That's the finance chair.
Hold on, do you have a form? We haven't adjourned just yet. This would be D, late file D.
City council invite Melanson
Melanson
Heath to a
Heath for
future finance
Finance
committee
Committee.
hearing. Or its representative, or whatever, however you want to word it.
Late file D is from Counselor Bartley, Counselor McGee, that the city council invite in Melanson Heath, the outside auditor, to the finance committee meeting. To finance, all those in favor?
All right.
All opposed?
Motion adjourned.
Motion is to adjourn.